first person signed up to provide up to 3 minutes of testimony is Hayden Black Walker.
Good evening, I'm Hayden Black Walker. I'm a new resident of the neighborhood, but I've lived in Austin my entire life. Really glad to finally be over here. I actually think I've done the wrong thing. I wanted to speak very briefly to several things on the agenda, and so I thought that general communication would be better because I just wanted to say one thing about multiple items. Is that okay? I'll just be very brief. I just wanted to say that I remember when the RFPs came out for 51st Street quite a while ago, and I'm glad to see it moving forward, but I hope it moves a little faster. We really need improvements to 51st Street. I also wanted to say I think a community center is a really great idea, and I hope that that idea can move forward. And then lastly, I just wanted to say I'm grateful to be appointed by the Neighborhood Association to the PT&D, and so I came tonight to hear a little bit more about that. So thanks very much.
Thank you. The next person signed up to provide 3 minutes of testimony is Heather Richmond.
Hi, I'll make it short and sweet. So I own a row house. I lived in Mule for 4 years. I just bought another row house. And so I feel the row houses are so small, you can't have get-togethers, meet your neighbors. I feel the community center will bring us all together, get to know one another, set up for like crafts or meet for coffee and such. So that's why I'm supporting it.
Thank you. Commissioners, the next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our August 13th meeting. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at the draft minutes. Are there any corrections or other additions that need to be made to that draft document? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the August 13th meeting minutes as presented? I see a motion. I see a second. Any questions? Those in favor of approving the August meeting minutes, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Meeting minutes are approved. Now,
Who was the second?
that was Richard was the second.
Thank you.
We'll next move on to the first of 2 staff briefings. The first one that we've been looking forward to for some time is an update on the East 51st Street Mobility Project. Representing the Capital Delivery Services Department of the city is Eric Bailey.
Good evening and welcome everybody. I am Eric Bailey, the Deputy Director of Capital Delivery Services. Happy to provide you all an update on the East 51st Street project. So we're all ready to go here and we'll get started. As a high-level reminder, the limits of construction for this project are 51st Street from I-35 to Berkman. It was funded through the 2012 bond, and so that is a long, long time ago in terms of bond money, and we are working diligently to move the project forward. We run into some issues that I'll get into a little bit later in the presentation, but this is definitely a priority for city staff as well as I know for all of y'all in terms of getting these improvements here installed and built. So, these are, high-level overviews of a couple of intersections representative of what the project is. Planned improvements include, trees, improved drainage, bike paths, sidewalks, improved water infrastructure, and landscape medians. You can see in the lower left is a section view which shows 2 lanes in each direction, as well as a shared use path on the north side and split bicycle and pedestrian facilities on the south side. And on the right there, you see a sample intersection drawing for 51st Street and Lancaster. You can see, let's see, is this? Oh, this one. There we go. So you can see here, this is on the north side of the shared use path. You can see on the south side, the split, vertical split facilities over here. Sidewalk goes down around tie-in with the existing bike path there. So intersection improvements all along the way, and then the median infrastructure that we talked about before, landscape medians for the extent of the project. So we faced some challenges recently on this project, particularly around the adoption of Atlas 14 and tweaking the design to meet those needs. Atlas 14, for those that are not aware, is a new flood risk reduction calculations that were adopted while the project was in design. We haven't been grandfathered in under the previous rule, but basically what that did is it turned the previous 20-year floodplain, or the current 20-year floodplain into what used to be the 100-year floodplain. It's an effect of climate change, things like that. NOAA is the governmental agency that administers the Atlas 14. Basically what it means at a high level is that the project had to redesign a lot of the storm drain infrastructure to accommodate increased flows based on increased modeling data from runoff that was coming from the creeks and roads and things.
Can you spell out the name of the Atlas?
Atlas, like a road atlas. 14 is the name of it. So, what happens then is the Atlas 14 data is incorporated into the city's drainage criteria manual, and the design has to comply with the drainage criteria manual. Now, the problem that we've been having is that our design consultant has been unable to adapt their plans to Atlas 14. So, after a long process of negotiation and discussion with them about how they could improve that, we ultimately had to terminate the designer for lack of performance. This is understandably a setback. It does not help in delivering the project any faster. However, since we've made that decision, we have moved on with we already have a new consultant on board who has expertise in this area, and we're moving forward with continuing the design. And just I want to be super clear here, we are committed to making this project happen, doing these improvements along 51st Street, but unfortunately because of the issues that we've seen with our designer, there has been a little bit of a setback in terms of how long it's going to take to get the project advertised and bid. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news on that, but like I said before, we are committed to moving the project forward and getting these improvements built. So how do we move forward? Right now, we have assigned that new consultant. We have a new contract, a new consultant on board. They're going to finish that design. One of the things that we will be able to take advantage of in this new process is when we submit the plans, it will go to the new Development Services Public Project Review Team, which is a dedicated review team at DSD for public projects. So it provides some expedited reviews as well as dedicated staff, so you see the same person over and over again when it comes to design reviews, drainage reviews, things like that. And then eventually, obviously, bid the project to get it under construction. So right now, we are anticipating early 2026 for a bid period on this. So that's just over a year and a half away. Unfortunately, the process of revising the plans to accommodate Atlas 14 involves a lot of in-depth engineering and calculations and revisions and storm drain and stormwater modeling, which can be very complicated. But we are confident that our new consultant will be able to move this project forward, and we will be able to get the project out to bid in early 2026. With that, I'll open it up for questions. A couple things here. The project website with regular updates on 51st Street. The QR code on the right-hand side is public input. Be able to provide comment as well as sign up for email updates and the automated updates that we run through our public information office, and as well as the capital delivery services email address if you have any direct questions. You can email us at that address as well, and I'll leave that up while I do Q&A.
And before we start the questions, in case your eyesight isn't quite perfect, this presentation is also start questions from commissioners with Josh.
Well, thank you for being here today. I've been asking for this presentation and really trying to figure out what's going on with the project for about 3 years now. Deeply, deeply disappointed to hear it's 2026. Just deeply disappointed. A friend of mine was biking through by Home Depot, got hit by a car, really banged up. I'm sure those things are going to happen again. It is incredibly dangerous for pedestrians. A big part of this committee is to try to connect Windsor Park and Mueller, so having that is what just feels like a gigantic gap. I bike my kids across Berkman to their school at Windsor Park. It's just a mess. Yeah, at Glenton Elementary, it's just a mess. So thank you for being here, but it is so unbelievably frustrating that something that was approved in 2012 is just going to be in 24 and then 2026. So 14 years later, I don't know what else to say other than I hope the city can collaborate more in the future. I've been reaching out to people. I'm actually happy this is now Capital Delivery Services because I was reaching out to other people that transition and public works and getting nothing. Just getting no response. So I don't know what else to say other than, man, 14 years on something that who knows what funding sources are available. I mean, this is the thing that Austin's just gotta get better at. And I'm hoping Capital Delivery Services can help usher these along because 14 years is so long. And if you say 2026, I'm worried it's going to be, my kids will be grown by the time. And I just cannot, as someone that rides across this almost every day, the intersection at Berkman and 51st is so wildly dangerous. I mean, it's almost reckless to even have a bike lane on Berkman going south with what we're putting kids, and there's kids riding from there, from Windsor Park to the middle school. I just don't, anything you can tell me about how this, I mean, I know it was Atlas 14, but man, there was a lot of time in between there. Anything that we can help on, I'm just so upset that it's another 2 years when I've been hearing that it was going to bid and going to permitting a year ago or now.
Yeah, no, and I share in the frustration that you're feeling at a high level too. Is way too long. That's, quite frankly, that's unacceptable. That is one of the things that, Capital Delivery Services is working on, reducing that project delivery timeframe as a whole, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, including, discussions like this, code requirements and how that works and how that impacts the city infrastructure projects and permitting and stuff like that. So at a very, very high level, I can't get into too much detail about it, but like I said, we did terminate the engineer, so if you read between the lines on that their performance was lacking in terms of what our expectations were. We don't jump to that decision lightly, right? We like to give our consultants and contractors opportunities to correct and deliver on what the contractual requirements are. Unfortunately, that didn't happen in this case, and that is the main cause of this delay, is that they could not perform the work to get a permittable set across development services, and therefore we can't bid a set that doesn't have a permit, right? So, like I said, the project team has been working with the engineer since late last year in order to try and resolve these issues, and there was a lot of back and forth and lack of performance there. So, just on a personal level, I drive that intersection all the time. I live just on the other side of 35. I've got relatives that live in Miller, and so I know, I've been there, I've seen it. I've seen, even from a car, the left-hand turn movements coming through that intersection are dangerous. And, being on a bike obviously is easy to be more vulnerable in that. And there's no denying what the need is for the project, right? The issue obviously is that we're trying to deliver that as quickly as we can. Unfortunately, we hit the setback with the engineer, but, we're moving forward, we have a path forward. And, one of the reasons, like I mentioned, that Capital Delivery Services was, brought into existence was to address issues just like this for projects that sit and languish for years without a lot of progress, figuring out what exactly is going on and trying to rectify those issues.
Thank you for that.
Yes, Ken.
First of all, thank you very much for your presentation. I guess I'm curious, you mentioned the Atlas 14, that's going to require some modifications to the engineering from a flood perspective. Given the time frame, the 14 years, and the engineering that was done probably in the 13, 14-year timeframe, I would hope that the city is looking at lessons and opportunities that you gained over that timeframe. Is that being applied now as well to these upgrades or these changes?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, part of the switch to the new engineer, right? We're not starting at square one. There is work that we were able to adapt from the previous engineer and make tweaks to. We already have the relationships developed with the reviewers in watershed protection and development services, so we know who to go to with questions and who are the people that provide those answers to us as we move forward with the new design.
Commissioners, other questions for Eric? Yes, Rick and then, was it Marcus?
Needs to.
Oh, okay, let's go around right now. We'll start with Rick.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, glad you're here and understand that it's not your fault. So thank you for starting to get it moved along. Does this website show the full length, drawings of the full length of the project, or do you know?
I don't know. I haven't dove that deeply into it, but generally on the project websites, right, we're not going to include the full set of plans because that's often hundreds of pages. But usually we include a representative section similar to what I showed in the drawing there. Obviously, nothing's final yet in terms of the design, so things may change. But I'll have a look at that and talk with our project management team and our PIO team and see if we can't get a couple of sample intersections and things loaded up there to the website.
That would be great, because that was some of the issue with 12 years that have gone by, is like the website, nobody updated it for a very, very long time. And not knowing what the issue was just left us all in the dark, and so that was a little disappointing, I'll admit. Because there are some things that the last drawings I had still had issues, and so if you get to get some public input, I'm probably going to do that. So thank you. I would like to have seen more, but I get it, so.
Martin?
Thank you, hi. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked the people who are designing I-35. What are y'all going to do with the runoff from these streets? Is there going to be any capturing of any of these materials that are coming out of cars? Is that just going straight into creeks?
No, that's actually part of the design and part of the Atlas 14 issues that we're facing. Is there's requirements for runoff detention and treatment of things like oil and stuff that spills onto roadways. So that will be handled as part of the permitting process. TxDOT is a little bit different because they don't have to comply with the city's environmental regulations because it's a state agency, but we have to comply with all of the city's regulations in terms of water quality and water quantity mitigation, basically treating the water before it gets to the creek. There's a variety of ways of doing that. I can't tell you what exactly it's going to be because obviously that's what we're working on now with the engineer. But yes, that will be treated per the city drainage criteria manual and the required code to make that happen.
Dave?
Yes, couple questions. Just in terms of, do you know when the last time, like, and I see that there's public input there, but do you know when the last time there was like a public input session, something, one of those like a public presentation and then feedback gathered?
Yeah, I don't know when the last public input. I can tell you it's been more than a year because I think that was about when we came and spoke to y'all last time, and it was a similar update of, hey, we're moving through to construction and things like that. But I can look at that and see and talk with our partners in Transportation Public Works and see if they think we should come out and make that effort to do that again.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to slow things down, obviously, but at the same time, I'm thinking like, man, if the last time that public feedback was like 6 years ago or something like that, like, problems that we may be trying to solve, like maybe they're all built into this new one from 6 years ago, but maybe there's some new problems that have arisen since then. I just want to make sure that, the reality is like that URL is probably not going to get hit too much with feedback. So I think I think it'll at least be good to revisit when the last time it happened and whether or not doing another public session and, inviting us and all of our neighbors around here to provide input. I guess the other question I had is, and maybe you don't have an answer to this, but as I think about however many years it's been, whatever, 14 years, I assume that like there's a set amount of funds to do this project, and that was issued, and forgive me for my ignorance on the financing, so correct me if I say something wrong, but you have money that was issued in 2012, and we probably paid the first engineer, so there's money that goes out the door there, and now we're gonna pay a second engineer, and then inflation happens, and so I'm just kind of wondering, have there been any sacrifices that have had to be made because there's really not as much money as there was originally? Are there things that we had wanted to do that we're not able to do because there's, like I assume that there was a list of things that we're trying to accomplish with the project, and I'm curious if we're able to still hit all those, or if there's something we left on the table.
I suppose that depends on what you mean by sacrifices to be made, right? So Transportation Public Works has identified other funding sources that are going to go into funding this project in addition to the 2012 bond dollars, right? Because just like you're saying, the project takes a long time, there's inflation, there's other things that go into it, right? In terms of the project scope, I wasn't around when the project was originally scoped, but at a very, very high level, we're sticking with the original project scope, right? Of improving pedestrian and bicycle circulation, looking for, the center medians and things like that to just make it easier to get around and make the intersection safer, the roadway safer. So at a high level, that's the goal. I don't know that there were any like specific, oh, you're gonna plant, an oak tree here, and now we can't do that because we can't afford to buy a fully mature oak tree. But, at a high level, the goal of the project is still the same, in terms of improving the roadway and improving the safety along the roadway.
Gotcha. And then, if you just kind of brought something up that I just haven't thought about, but like, who's gonna be responsible for maintaining the median?
The Transportation Public Works Department is responsible for maintaining the median as well as the roadway.
Okay. Is that the same for the median on the airport?
POA gets that one.
Right, that's what I was sort of wondering, yeah. Okay. Is it irrigated? Is it?
Well, if we want plants to grow in it, water.
Just wondering.
The trees.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Rick?
So, I do remember there being, a public display of what it was at the Performing Arts Center, AISD Performing Arts Center, at some point. So, if we could do something like that again fairly soon to just kind of see where everything is, that would be so good. And I have been around now since this started, and the PIAC is the reason that I pushed for it, because we had Home Depot at that point, we were getting the HEB, and the PIAC was coming along, and 35 to Berkman has more streets or driveway cuts than the rest of Miller combined. So it's pretty critical. There's a lot of traffic, obviously, and so that's part of the reason that I asked for this to happen, and it became a bond project, and 2012 was a long time ago. So and Catella's paid for the conceptual work by McCann Adams. So that's just a little bit of history on that. I wanted to share that. Thank you.
Yes, Richard?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. What are the other funding sources?
Oh, man. Well, I'd have to look into that to get you real specific on it. So I'd have to get back to you on that. TPW has a variety of other funding mechanisms, primarily the transportation user fee of the TUF, which is basically a fee that's in your utility bill for use of the streets. Generally, that's where budget shortfalls come from, are funded by the TUF, because it allows for some CIP improvements and things like that. But to answer the question specifically, I have to go back to the office and have a
So
look.
it's coming from the utility fee funds?
Well,
Yeah.
the transportation user fee, yes.
Right, transportation user fee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who are you working with in Watershed?
Well, Kevin Schunk is the primary reviewer there.
Kevin Schott?
Kevin Chunk is the primary reviewer there. However, Ramesh Swaminathan is the assistant director that's over watershed protection and environmental review.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
yeah. So Ramesh is really the primary person that I correspond with on this, but, there are individual reviewers in both DSD and watershed who are reviewing the project and working on this.
That's okay, yeah, I know Ramesh. Getting back to David as well as Rick's comment about getting in front of the public again, I'm not quite sure how you manage that over here. My experience on other commissions is the city is not very efficient in notifying the members of the impacted community about things. Where do you get your, where do you get your list of people that you're going to get involved in this? Because, my personal experience in watching the city reach out to members of the community is they really are not very efficient.
Yeah, we have a variety of sources for gathering that information. One of them is mailers, right? We have a road mailing address that's with a certain radius of the project, right? So we can pull all those addresses, send folks postcards, mailers, send them inserts in their utility bills. Another one obviously is online. People sign up for the project notices and things like that. We'll notify them. And those are kind of the two. We have some historic, mailing lists and things like that that we can also rely on as well. Oh.
I don't have a mic on me, but I'll just add, sorry, Interrupter. Thank you, Jill Fagan, Financial Services Department. We also, in the past, for those community meetings, have coordinated with Catellis and used all of their resources available to them in terms of, providing information that the city has generated, but being able to use sort of some of the communication channels, not just for the Miller neighborhood, but also all of the surrounding neighborhoods that have an interest in this project as well. So we're happy to coordinate with Eric and his team on helping to get the word out for any opportunities for community input on this project.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I would hope that you seem to be more organized than the rest of the city is. Thank you.
Yes, Judge.
Let's see, the last piece, thank you for coming out. I really appreciate it. I did not mean to shoot the messenger on this. I've just been waiting on this for so long. So I'm really grateful for coming out, and I would love for there to be just, even if it's still stuck, I've just been digging for so long on it, that I would love, even if there isn't a major update, to have it come back again in a year or whatever it is. Because even just knowing this and knowing where it is helps, because I am glad that it is still moving forward. So thank you for that. I would love for y'all to come back, and if there's anything that we can do or I can do, there's a lot of advocates that are interested in this too. So if there's anything else we can do, I'm going to send people this link, but anything else we can do, either this commission or just advocates, I'd love to talk about that as well. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Just to reiterate, right? The city is committed to moving this project forward. There's no question about the need. There's no question about the project needing to move forward again. I hate to be the bearer of bad news with the engineering stuff and things like that, but I do want to reiterate, our commitment to moving the project forward, and happy to come back and talk to y'all again in a year. Obviously, it sounds like there's a desire out there to schedule, some public meeting follow-up and things like that. So, y'all will obviously be notified when that happens as well, and we'll work with our team to get updates on them.
Yes, Dave.
Yeah, one last quick one.
Check.
There we go. One last quick thing. The Atlas 14 obviously is sort of instigating sort of this redesign work. Does it have any functional impact on the user aspects? I mean, is it sort of everything below the soil kind of thing, or is there anything that sort of actually impacts the users of the space?
Yeah, in terms of, pipe sizing, right, all that is below ground, so the users aren't going to notice that. When we get into talking about water detention and treatment, then yes, it will change the size of those water detention facilities. Those are generally on the surface to allow for capture and detention of, low volume rainfalls and things like that. So there will be some effect on the surface. That being said, it's not going to change, the size of the bike paths and the pedestrian facilities and things like that. We're going to be able to design around that, basically. So it won't be the same as what the pre-Atlas 14 design looked like, but the total width of travel lanes, the volume of travel that we can get through there is going to be the same. So.
commissioners, any other questions? Well, I want to thank you again for, we look forward to hearing from you. Maybe a year probably sounds about right, so sounds like the next big hurdle is early 2026, so next year, fall, would be a good opportunity to kind of get an update. And thank you, and thank you for all the work of your staff on this important project.
Appreciate it, thank you.
The next item on our agenda is an update on the Parking Transportation Management District. Should give everybody a heads up, we had originally planned for a more detailed presentation, but because of some unexpected events, including the death of the family of the person who was going to do the presentation, we're going to get a brief update, and there'll be a more extensive presentation at a later time that we'll need to schedule. But we'll look forward for hearing from Curtis Rogers. Curtis, go right ahead.
Thank you for that introduction. My name is Curtis Rogers. I'm a project coordinator with the City of Austin Transportation Public Works Division, specifically the Parking Enterprise Division, more specifically with the Parking and Transportation Management Districts. I'm just going to give a quick overview just in case there are some non-wonky people out there that might not know the details around that. What Austin calls a Parking and Transportation Management District is what's generically called a Parking Benefit District, meaning if someone spends $1 on parking here, a piece of that comes back and stays within the community. So it's a great program that we have where it sort of encourages people to look at other modes. It helps us manage the parking more efficiently and also helps benefit the local community. We are limited in what we can do with that money. Typically we call it the sidewalk fund for most neighborhoods in Austin because there are no sidewalks in a lot of Austin. So the easiest thing to do is just push the money back into sidewalks. Y'all are lucky, y'all have sidewalks here, so we get to be a little more creative with what we do with this funding. And we got some communication, some feedback last year when I did another presentation similar to this, where we sort of wanted to take a pause, collect, get more money coming in, and when the new group was going to be formed, that was going to be the the committee for the PTMD for Mueller, that's when we were sort of going to take an opportunity to take action and look for more opportunities for what to do. The main thing I wanted to do was sort of introduce the group that's going to represent the group. I should also acknowledge Jill and Brian, Jill with the city and Brian with Catellus have been part of our, I don't know what you call it, the transition or they got us ramped up with the PTMD, so they've been doing all the work before we have the PTMD ready to go for Mueller. Just going to read through the group that's going to be represented. We're going to have 5 members of the committee going forward, at least for the first couple years likely. Ashley Colleen Frick is going to represent the Aldrich Street Merchants Association. Hayden Blackwalker, who you heard from before, is going to be representing the Mueller Neighborhood Association. Mateo Barnstone, who's also here, is going to be representing the Mueller Property Owners Association Mixed Use Board. Carl Paulson is going to be the POA's ECTC, the Employment Center, Town Center, Commercial Sub-Association Board. And last but not least, Joe Restuccia is going to be representing the Mueller Master Plan Community Manager. Generally, this group is going to be sort of my point of contact with the Mueller group. They'll be able to send me recommendations, we'll meet, we'll go over financials, we'll talk about what we have, what we can't do, and they'll be the voice for the community. They'll be able to send us feedback on what we can do. It's really open to a lot of things. There are some specific rules about what we can do. Typically they have to be infrastructure improvements that last at least 5 years. There's some little things we'll go over, but for the most part we're open to hearing anything. In the end of the day, we'll be up to the Transportation Public Works for people to decide what we're going to do, but we're open to hearing from bond projects that need additional funding, from original ideas that the community has. There's been some requests for red paint on curbs in the neighborhood, which could help with some of the parking challenges. So it really goes for whatever we need, mobility related is what we can typically do. Just to give you an idea of what we're looking forward to doing, we're pioneering some new ideas in other neighborhoods right now in the South Congress area. We're pioneering what we're calling hybrid parking, which is more of a residential area that offers paid parking during the day, but also recognizes the residents need consistent parking in the evenings. So that's sort of one of the things that we sort of have in our toolkit now. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, commissioners, we'll start with Andrew.
Thanks for coming. The studies are still ongoing, I guess, how parked up blocks get to decide if they're being added to the district, the streets that aren't currently.
I don't think we have any surveys actively going right now.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, typically, there might be, maybe not familiar with them.
Uh-huh.
Did you have any particular street you're thinking about?
I live on Ruiz and I'm ready for PTD.
Right, I've definitely heard about Ruby
The
Street.
cross streets are, but the long streets aren't. And
Yeah.
of course, it gets pretty parked up, but I thought there was an ongoing, almost continuous study of how full they get.
There likely have been, and I can look into whether or not, we have any completed data on that.
Yes, Corky.
Hi, thank you for that. How much money is in our fund right now?
I don't have a total number, but I did pull some numbers. Last year, the fund brought in about $250,000 just for the fund, and that was on $650,000 gross revenue. So essentially, the gross revenue comes in, we take out expenses,
Sure.
and then we get half of that to stay in the community. This year, we're looking at gross going up to about $700,000 likely. Net is down a little bit, so the take might only be $150,000 this year. That's likely from higher enforcement costs and a few higher costs around pay stations. Some good and bad news around that. Bad news is enforcement costs might go up a little bit. Good news is it might be Sunday enforcement, which I've heard is a thing that needs to happen here. And then some other good news is we are moving away from pay stations being so, I don't want to say littered, but pay stations on every block.
Yeah.
In other neighborhoods, we are depending more on the app. And we're kind of doing more education campaigns. Y'all get to keep more money if they use the app. There's some fees for the pay stations, so we're really encouraging everyone to use the app. If you can't use the app, we still want to have the pay stations available, but we really want to depend less on the pay stations, more on the app if possible from a financial standpoint.
What have we been using that money for? How much has been available to us in the past? And how has that been expended?
The only project I know of was assisting a project, adding funds to a project that was on 51st Street, which clearly is an ongoing project. But going forward, we're open to more safety improvements around that project. If it comes up, likely it's, some things more within the neighborhood is what I've heard.
I was looking at the representation on the group. I'm not objecting to any person, of course, but we do have some transition going on here. And so, will the size of this group ever increase, or who decides the membership, and how's that impacted?
Oh, I don't think we have a limit. So we landed on 5. Odd numbers are good in case there's a vote. But we landed on 5. We're open to other recommendations as far as representation goes. We sort of just try to look at residential, commercial. Commercial districts do have more activity when it comes to paid parking. Now, we didn't try to favor them, but they just might have more insights and opinions on something like that.
Okay, I just wonder who picked and how you decided. Who does? Do you? Who decides?
There was, I think it was before, this has been going on for a while, but essentially 5 groups were just determined, and then we asked those 5 groups to bring someone on board.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, Kathy, you have a question.
Curtis, I want to say thanks for being there. And being that we'll get another update next month, does that mean that we'll get more updates on the hybrid parking in Miller and what the future plans are?
We'll be pushing pretty close to rollout if, in October, if we're able to speak at that one. It will be more definite mapping, more specifics around just kind of the rollout and what we're able to do. As far as the studying, there are some streets we're still measuring, width of the street and things like that, looking at fire hydrants, looking at all the little pieces like that. So all the details will be in that one, but likely it will push beyond this month as far as rollout, because we'll probably have to roll out after we do that update.
Okay. We'll hold tight.
Commissioners, other questions? Well, Curtis, I'm sorry, Dave.
I heard you mention earlier that there's sort of a trend towards less of the meters. And as somebody who lives in a hybrid zone, or going to be a future hybrid zone, too many of those poking up all over sort of in a highly residential space if we can. So any opportunity to kind of, if we have to have them push them to the edges, I think would be great. But I love the idea. And I realize, kind of say, you know, not everybody has a phone, but it kind of feels like almost everybody has a phone. So, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, if you go to South Congress, you can kind of see what we're doing there. We don't have any of the pay towers in the neighborhoods. And obviously you can walk to the avenue or walk to this area, you'll be able to, but yeah, we do have more information on the signs when it comes to text and pay. People visiting, I'm not sure if you get the kind of traffic South Congress gets, but people visiting the area might not want to download the app for a one-time transaction, so our text and pay feature is better for that. But again, we are encouraging more people. We would love to work with communications y'all have to get more people download the app, just so we can get into that.
Commissioners, other questions? Well, Curtis, I want to thank you for stopping by on short notice, and we do look forward to hearing the more detailed presentation in one of our future meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a brief verbal update from the transition work group. For those that weren't here last month, we had a presentation of the draft report. We went through the various recommendations to various stakeholders and entities. We left open an opportunity for feedback from stakeholders and commissioners. And Corky, you have a brief verbal update.
Sure, and thank you. We have really minimal input. One written document, one verbal report or comment about good recommendations and such. So we gave people a month to respond in any way to any questions, and I guess the month's up. I don't know if we're going to extend it or not. I'd really like to keep it open if I can, as people, some ideas come forward. But the next step really is to gather back up the work group and I think strategize about how to go forward with the recommendations that we have, because there are several responsible entities there and require some interaction with the PLA and the city and and how we take these propositions forward, these recommendations forward. So other than that, if anyone has any questions, we're pretty much waiting for input and asking, and not much has come forward. I don't think that means agreement necessarily, knowing how things work, or maybe a lack of interest.
Commissioners, any comments or questions for Corky? And yes, Corky, at your request, yeah, we will extend the comment period through the end of this month, in case anybody else has any additional feedback. Any questions or comments? Well, just as a reminder, at our October meeting, we're looking forward to the next step on acting on some of those recommendations and next steps, and we'll work directly with the work group members on how to craft whatever document they want to make. Which one of the recommendations you think should go forward into them. So, again, thank you, all of you guys, for the work you've done. Yes, Richard?
I guess from the last meeting, the only thing I see is the recommendation with regard to the hangar. I don't see anything regarding recommendations in a broad sense. Maybe missing something.
I believe in the report, there were recommendations for the POA, but there were also some recommendations aimed at city council, and I think that's what's gonna be worked on next.
And the Miller Commission.
And the Miller
Foundation.
No.
By the Mueller Foundation, what are you referring to? That, I guess what I'm really kind of getting to is this thing regarding a conservancy was dropped off.
I have no idea.
Commission, that's for another item, not this one.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay.
But
No.
we did have a recommendation that commented on the, I think it was under the need for more revenue streams to support infrastructure. And one of the ideas was identified there might be a conservancy that's mentioned as possible.
Okay, because I,
And you had many comments about that meeting.
right, well, I guess okay, I just don't see any specific recommendations in the, out of the August meeting, on the thing, so maybe I missed that.
Yeah, we can assure you there are some, if you just kind of go through that second half of the report, there are some that are broken down by who they be, the recommendations we get to.
Okay.
And that's what we'll be focusing on at next month's meeting for both discussion and as an action. Give everybody a heads up.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Cory? And I assume there was no. Oh. Okay. Sorry. Thank you. We do have public testimony on this topic. First from Jeff Brown. This is related to as a reminder to the comments on the transition work group.
Hi there, my name's Jeff Brown, and I'm here to speak about the Browning hangar, as usual. My big idea today is just to, when talking about the hangar, try to look forward to your ideal situation there. A bustling place, nice businesses, bunch of people, someplace you want to bring your friends to, all that. And there's lots of reasons that we can think of where things don't work, or examples of where something didn't turn out the way we wanted it to. But that doesn't really get us anywhere. And for me, I think one of the good options for the hangar might be to set up a 501c3 conservancy. And that's what I printed out for you guys. It goes through all the main ideas of why that would be a good idea. There's also a short list of the potential sources of funding. You know, the HOA doesn't have to pay anything, and so on and so on. It's just so easy for the conversation to get shut down. It's like, oh, this will cost $1 million, or oh, I can find a bad example of where something didn't work out someplace else. But I think if we keep in focus what we really want the future, and I think people pretty much all agree, they want a nice, vibrant place where everybody wants to go in the future. And if you think through the conservancy idea, especially over the long term, I mean, past our time, that could be a very good option. That's about it for me. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, so thank you very much.
And we will just clarify for the record that Jeff's comments were pertaining to the references about the Browning hangar that are included in the transition work group report.
I'd like to have some comments on that.
Okay, yeah, but before we do, I just want to check. Sally Acevedo, did you want to testify?
For the community? No,
She
the
wanted
other
to
one.
speak on the community center.
Okay, that's what, okay, all righty, good. Yeah, that completes all of the public testimony on that item. Yes, Rick.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to comment on the 501c3 proposal. I've done an audit of the Trail Foundation, which is a 501c3. And if I look at the things here, transparency and accountability, and I'm just commenting with regard to the Trail Foundation, okay? So what I find is it is not transparent or accountable.
And Richard, I just want to clarify one thing.
Yeah.
So everybody's clear, because I'm not familiar with this document. This is a document, this was not actually part of the transition work report. So I did want to clarify that.
I understand. Okay. the community control and ownership does not necessarily reside with the community. Is not obligated to, if you would look at the bank account of the Trail Foundation, it has $4 million in the bank, so it's not as if the money automatically flows back into the community the way people perceive that a nonprofit works. The oversight and the governance does not necessarily have to contain members of the community. So the long and the short of all this is the devil's in the details. You can draw up a 5013 or 501(c)(3) document that rectifies all these problems, but you have to draw it up very carefully in order to do that. Otherwise, it spins radically out of control, and the community will lose control out of this thing. And that's what's happened with the Trail Foundation. And it lists Pease Park Conservancy. I haven't audited that one, but it's very
Richard,
simple.
before we go too far down the trail, I think
I'm
you probably want to save some of these comments for next month, because if it's included, like I said, this is not part of the transition work groups, but if the recommendations are included in the document that's going to be presented next month by the work group, that might be the time to really delve more deeply into this topic, because like I said, this one's, it does appear to be a recommendation, but it's not actually, this one isn't officially coming from the commission, so I wanted to be clear.
Okay.
There are lots of ideas floating around, very useful, and there'll be opportunities to delve a little more deeply into the next month, depending on what the committee comes up with. All right. That completes the transition work group update, and next is, we've got two more discussion items. One of them is a brief discussion on the Alder Street District garages by Brian DeLeese.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Brian DeLeesel with Catellus, working on Miller Development or Marketing Communications. Don't have a development update per se tonight because there isn't a whole lot to update since pretty thorough update last month, but I did want to give you some information about some new information and a very sexy topic, parking garages, that I thought the y'all would be interested in because things are moving pretty quickly on this. And I'll start with just a little brief history. As you're probably aware, there have been some periodic issues with the McBee garage, which is the garage that's behind the Alamo Draft House. There have been some issues where people have gotten stuck behind the gate for a period of time, and that's been kind of an ongoing thing for the past several months. And as a standard procedure, it takes some time to figure out what went wrong with that, and it turns out it was a software glitch. It had nothing to do with the actual mechanics of the bar that was coming up and down in the software. I mean, lots of patchwork and a lot of effort to do that, but it didn't ultimately quite work. And as they were kind of working through, well, what are our next steps on that, et cetera, we learned that the company that provides the management for not only the McBee garage, but also the Simon garage, which is the new garage behind Sweet Greens, Dish Society, et cetera, that also is the garage for Teachers Retirement System. Both those are operated, or were operated by a company called SP Plus. They have been acquired now by a company called Metropolis. And in that acquisition, they're bringing new technology to us that we will be in the process of educating all the employees who use that space at Teachers Retirement System, at Alamo Draft House, at Stantec in the Diamond Building, et cetera, and all of the retailers, plus all the visitors who use those retail spaces, who go to the farmer's market, who go to the parks, et cetera. So there's a lot of work to be done. And so one of our steps is to kind of just inform you all about this, but there's a lot of outreach to be done there as well. So later this month, Metropolis plans to install a new system that will scan the license plate of every car that enters and exits both the garage, as I mentioned, for employees and for visitors. So instead of paying at the gate or at the machines near the elevators, you'll simply drive up to the gate and your license plate will be registered either through an app or you can pay online. And you'll drive through the parking with the parking fee, charge to your credit card, that you have associated with that app or with that online. You'll also be able to pay for, like I said, from a website. Parking fees are not going to change. They're going to remain $2 an hour. And then participating businesses will still allow for validation, but the validation will change slightly as well. Instead of getting a QR code at the business or getting your card stamped at the business, Metropolis is providing every business with a tablet near the door, and you essentially will enter your license plate number, and then you will automatically be validated depending on how many hours you were there and how much time each business participates, does the validation. Once someone uses the app or the website to pay for the parking for the first time, their license plate is in the system for good. There also will be toll-free numbers that will be around all the garages for those who don't have a smartphone or don't want to download the app. They can simply call the phone number. The person on the other end will provide an email address. The parker will provide the email address. They'll then get an email, and then within 24 hours they can pay online. And then once they do that, they're also in the system for the future. Metropolis intends to launch this technology as early as Wednesday, September 25th, so it's not that far away. They're currently working on trying to get as many of the employees registered on their cards as possible, while we're working in the next few weeks to educate everyone through our normal communication channels, which includes newsletters, includes social media. It'll include Nextdoor. I'll be sending emails to the surrounding neighborhood association presidents and hope that they will share that with their groups and hopefully the things we do like in the Windsor Park newsletter and places like that to inform folks of this. We'll also have signage around not only the garages but also around the community as a whole to inform people of those changes that are taking place. There also will be people, Metropolis staff, that will be at the gates to inform people of this change for the first few weeks of this change. And there's also going to be a grace period for any kind of late fees or anything like that because they know this is going to be a change for folks. We want to make sure that people understand how this works before anything like that happens. There's still a lot more details to come. I'm just learning about this in the past week, which is why I don't actually have a full presentation. I certainly will email you all when I have more information. We will be starting the communication here very soon. We've already started informing the businesses about this. We're already getting good feedback from them in terms of getting their employees' vehicles registered for this process. And it should, ultimately, what we want to do is make it the process easier for people to go in and out of these vehicles. Like, there will still be a gate, but the gate will open regardless of whether you pay anything, because it's all going to be scanned through your license plate. This is also, I should mention, the technology is being used currently at Texas Mutual here, and it's also used at the Trader Joe's at Seaholm. And there were some initial issues with that, as I understand it, but Metropolis learned from those mistakes in terms of some late fees and whatever that will apply in this situation. So we're very pleased about that. With that, I'll take any questions. I know it's complicated. I don't even answer everything this evening, but I'm more than happy to try to answer.
Kathy, you have a question.
Thanks for that, Brian. It's exciting. Who is still operating the parking garages? Is it still Catellis, or are they being handed over to the city, or do we have a plan for that yet?
It's owned by a partnership between Catellis and the city of Austin currently. And then we've hired Metropolis to be the management company for it.
Okay, so
there's no immediate plan yet in terms of how that will transition over time yet. And since we have now a little more time because the MDA has been extended, that's something we'll be working on in the next few years.
Thanks.
Commissioners, other questions? Yes, Josh.
I would, also add, I was in that parking garage, I think on Saturday, and the elevators were also broken too. Are we all aware of the elevator issues happening that?
I was not, but I will make sure that others on our team are aware of that as early as
There was somebody there, but I'm not sure if that's separate. There were just people carrying like baby strollers down the stairs. It just caused an issue on both sides of the elevators. The button wouldn't light up. And I thought it was a power issue.
Well, thanks, and I certainly will share that with the team. I will also say that in the process of this acquisition, our hope is that customer service will just be better generally. I have run into personally some instances where the people who are supposed to be attendants in the parking garage, either at the gates or in the pay stations near the garages, just weren't available when there was a line. And so we're hoping that with this acquisition of the company on board, we'll just have better customer service. So if something like that happens in the future, there's someone there who can fix that, that elevator issue or something a whole lot faster.
Just a little more clarification, so the McBee and the Simons, okay, so those two garages owned by the city, managed jointly by Catellus and the city, and then you contracted with parking service people
I believe Jill may know better than I do in terms of the ownership, but I believe it's a partnership between the city and Catellus owning it. The project owns the garages.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Dave?
Just gonna piggyback on my question, just, when you say the project owns the garage, is there an implication that Catellus will not have an ownership stake in the future? I mean,
That's well outside of my expertise to know.
but there's not like a plan to, it's not part of a contractual plan for you guys to invest, it's just, that as of right now, it's like a 50-50 partnership between the city and Catellus.
Yes.
The one other thing I'll just mention on parking garages is, it seems like, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'm not like auditing parking garages, but my girls like to go up and down the stairs in the parking garages quite a bit, so I'll go over there more than I should be. But it seems like the Simon one is not nearly as occupied as the B one, and I think it's just because we don't know about it. So I hope that we can remedy the noise.
That's something we've been working on, actually, to try to increase awareness of that garage. We have a bit of a challenge here. It's kind of a double-edged sword where we purposely try to hide the parking garages from an architectural standpoint, in hopes that people are spending more time looking at the buildings and not a garage, a utilitarian garage. But then, of course, when that happens, then people don't see the garages. And then just the way the roadway works, especially when you're coming up of Aldrich Street, it's really hard to see the entrances there. So we've added some signage there. The city has added some signage. We've added some other signage. We may be doing some other things from that standpoint. And as we are making these communication efforts for the new system, we'll also be updating websites. We're asking the farmers market to update their website. And we're hoping that we'll kind of remind people as part of this effort that there's not just one, there's actually two. And over time, I mean, even the McBee garage, when that first opened, people didn't really understand that it was there, didn't see it. It took some time for people to just kind of get used to it. We think that'll happen over time as well. But we're trying to push efforts along to get people to recognize that sooner than later.
Commissioners, other questions for Brian on this topic?
Evan?
Yes, Captain.
It would be nice if the businesses had a little map too. I don't know if y'all are working with them as well, but that might be helpful.
We are actually, one of the ideas that well, it's not necessarily a map, but one of the things we've explored that we haven't designed yet, we want to give the businesses postcards that they can leave on their counter or provide if they're a restaurant, kind of a menu to kind of inform people of this as well and give people information to the website. So I can look and see if we can add the maps to that design of the postcard as well. Good idea.
Commissioners, other questions? Is anyone signed up? No one signed up for public testimony. Well, thank you for this update. I look forward to hearing more. And I just want to clarify, you said the new software system, the new system is launched when in September?
We're hoping, it's always subject to change, but the latest I heard was Wednesday, September 25th.
25th, okay.
And we're doing that kind of midweek so that there's kind of Monday and Tuesday is kind of another reminder and another task at communicating folks just before it begins.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be more than happy to share that information as we get closer to the actual launch with the commission and others, of course.
All right.
Wait, when's the next drop apart?
I don't have that information in front of me, I'm sorry, I can email it to you. It's monthly basis, but I don't remember when it is for September.
Anything else? All right. The final discussion item, and a reminder this is a discussion item, it won't be an action item, is a discussion of the possibility of establishing a public community center within the boundaries of Miller. This presentation is going to be led by Andrew. So Andrew, go right ahead.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is an issue that I think probably is more an issue probably with the POA, but I think it's proper probably to bring it before this body, taking kind of a broad understanding of our charge to consider other redevelopment issues and land disposition strategy. But it's not a new issue. There was quite a concerted effort 2015 to 2017 or 18. In fact, a couple of members of this body, Rick and Dave, were part of that. I was part of that 2015 and 17. We were meeting. Well, yeah, it's referring to members of this body. And quite a concerted push that, as much as I love living here and I really admire the master plan and the design book, I think a real hole is that there was no planning for a community center. We're supposed to be a model for the rest of the city, what a neighborhood can be, and I think that would include a place for the people to meet and build community. I'm also a member, I think, full disclosure, the thing I passed out, I think for the second time in this body, I'm a member of a small nonprofit, I think, that just picked up this issue of the need for a community center in Austin. And I guess the newest wrinkle is that the city of Austin has a sort of a new model that they're considering called an Intergenerational Resource Activity Center, or an IRAC. And it goes way beyond just being a recreation center that we have quite a few of, especially in East Austin. But an IRAC would also bring together infant and child daycare and adult daycare and just healthcare, perhaps. And the city council has passed 2 resolutions. And there's an IRAC study group that advises city council, and it was going to propose for the Nash Hernandez building, which is at Festival Beach. In fact, there's been a new study by Austin Public Health within the last year that's probably not a correct location for it because of the size constraints, and the neighborhoods are actually not in favor of that. I think it kind of violates the vision plan and the neighborhood plan. So, but there's $5 or $6 million that's been funded to establish an IRAC somewhere. And at least my small nonprofit's idea is that a neighborhood community center in Mueller should probably be called a Northeast Austin Community Center and serve both the function of the city design, or IRAC, and a community center for the neighborhood. So and I think this is probably the clearest statement, the 2-pager that I've handed out to you. I mean, we've gone so far as to propose a particular location, which is the half acre that's still owned by the city of Austin, next to the control tower. Our thought is that that particular location could leverage the new park, and both enliven the park and utilize the park for some of the outdoor activities in the community center. The other thoughts about this site are it's on 2 rapid bus transit lines, so transit would be great for this. In addition, obviously, to the people from the Mueller community that would walk to it. There's great transit access to this location. And cost of this, we really propose the city of Austin do that, and it probably would, like the other recreation centers, probably parks and recreation, maintained and run, although we certainly presume that the residents of Mueller might want to volunteer, especially if it functions as a community center, that there would be resident interest in participating. But that is the idea. And I just wanted to bring up the discussion. I think it's proper to discuss if it's proper to not have a community center for Mueller in the master development agreement or the master plan.
Commissioners, questions? Yes, starting with Cory.
Thank you, Andrew, for bringing it forward. Is there parking, public parking in that area? I was trying to think if there's any, and the question I would have, if there isn't, how do we make it look like a community resource, a city resource, instead of a Mueller resource?
Well, I think the transit lines would help on that.
Well, I know, but I'm talking about the reality now. If someone wants to, I'm talking about the reality. I mean, I'm not objecting, I'm just wondering.
Oh, trust me, I'm an
Is
architect,
there
I've
public
thought of
parking
things.
in the area?
There's street parking.
But there's no.
There's the half acre could accommodate about 50 cars. I've done the design, already designed a couple of floors of the building. I would actually hope that there could be a parking arrangement struck with the apartment complex.
I was thinking about dropping off adults or children. I'm just kind of wandering
Yes,
through
I've
this.
thought about all
And I
of
thought, how do you park and how do you do it? Because I'm not far from that area, but it doesn't appear to be obvious public parking in the area.
Yes, probably like a lot of Mueller, we try and encourage people to walk to it and use transit.
It's just, I worry about things being
There wouldn't be a
billed
surplus
as
lot.
a city resource, and yet when the city tries to come, there's no way we can really participate.
Yes.
Thank you.
An issue, obviously.
Commissioners, other comments or questions? Yes, Ken?
Andrew, thanks very much for this presentation and the thoughts and ideas you're putting forward. In doing this intergenerational recreational activity center, one of the things I noted at the bottom of this page was that it looks like you were also proposing some form of a 501c3 nonprofit. And so, Corky, maybe something that you guys might want to consider down the road is if we're looking at this Brown Hangar, which also is being proposed in 501c3, there could be very much either if you take it separately, you could have competing resources and issues that could limit both areas. And I'm just wondering if it shouldn't be something more of a broader thought that helps maybe capture and really helps farm up a 501c3 that could be pretty strong. And in that, you might want to consider other locations within the Miller. And I'm specifically thinking, no offense, Catellus, but where your office is currently in the old, I guess it was the hangar. Signature, yeah, in the Signature building. I wonder if that's something that could be leveraged there as well as leveraging the Brown Hangar, and you sort of got a nice package that makes a stronger grant proposal. So those are my thoughts, and I hope you have great luck. I think this is really Miller's. Miller needs to be involved in this decision as a neighborhood and as their executive committee functions are. But I realize that this intergenerational activity is also a city function. So I think it would behoove, if you are looking at this to bring things together, you need to start bringing in all those different resources as well. So thank you.
Yes, Josh?
Yeah, I believe last time I had some similar feedback, which is, the work that we do for underwriting for affordable housing, it takes almost all the work really up front is getting that capital stack in only moving forward on city funds in the end when we have that full capital stack. And I think before there was mention of using that 5 or 6 million to kind of get it started, but I think I would love if there's any other update on thoughts. Would this be a bond in 2026? Are there kind of ways, because if you said 5 million for that, that's about 25 million for the rest of it. I'm just always thinking from an underwriting perspective, and getting a really full capital stack is kind of always my question, and I just don't know as much about funding sources for these type of hard projects other than general obligation bonds. Are there strategies y'all have thought about, or kind of ways to get what would be like at least another 25 million for this?
Yes, the limited that we understand and would have power over it would probably be a combination of bond. There might be public-private partnership opportunities, naming opportunities. But yeah, we recognize that by expecting the city or some kind of mechanism that doesn't put it on the POA or the residents, that yeah, it would take some combination thereof to achieve that. But yeah, I mean, I point to the 5 or 6 million at least getting the design started. But obviously also picking a location.
Commissioners, other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Dave.
And are you aware of any, like, sort of best-in-class IRAC facilities that, like, you know, if we're interested in learning more, that something that would be whets one's appetite?
I think there are in other cities, and if you'll look at if you'll just Google that in the city of Austin, the study group that has done multiple presentations, and I think they found, in fact, they designed an IRAC for the National Hernandez building. You can, in the presentation, you can see the design. It's just they found that it's not right square footage wise, and the neighborhoods have just have not been supported. But I think there are other resources that they're, because it was a UT professor, Angel, that
Jackie Engel.
has done studies. And she's a doctorate at the LBJ school, and she's done multiple presentations to what the elderly need in Austin and this concept. So I think there are examples of other cities.
Commissioners, other questions? Yes, Rick.
So what is it that you're wanting out of the commission for this?
Well, I mean, I have to imagine that in the future, I imagine bringing an action item that we supported the idea of a community center within the boundaries of the city. This is kicking off the discussion.
Okay, so supporting it, not looking to the city council to say, you need to create some way to do this. I mean, it's been long enough ago, I don't remember exactly how the citizen-initiated bond issue for 51st Street and for the Austin Studios happened. They were on the same bond package. Obviously, the Austin Studios did way better with getting theirs going, but I just don't remember how all that happened. But that is probably your best bet. So looking into that research and finding out how to get that going. They have to obviously happen at election times. Anyway, that would be something that I think we would want to hear more about before we look at making more recommendations. Otherwise, how is this going to be funded? I think that's getting that a little more secure is probably what I would like to hear. Thank you.
Commissioners, other questions? Oh, Kathy.
My only comment is that one square in that area is something that's slated for various types of retail. And I would want a really in-depth conversation with Catellus if they've had any luck getting that, because that's what the people over in that part of the neighborhood want. I don't know if you're creating some sort of mixed-use product or what, but I don't think the people around the tower want more traffic and more things like that. They want a coffee shop to walk to and a place to get a sandwich. I'm pretty upset that we don't have somewhere for a book club or a craft room, but also I don't think the city has the funds to pay for this. I would like to know more about how you're considering funding. Those are my comments.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments on this discussion item? Hearing none, we'll next move on to public testimony. We'll start with Milagros Cardenas.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay, good. Hi everyone, my name is Milagros Cardenas. I am a Mueller resident and a homeowner since 2022. And I feel it's very important to build a strong community. I feel neighbors need a place for daycare for seniors and children, and a place for us to gather and have conversations or parties. I'm a Zumba instructor, and it will be great to have a place to teach a class every once in a while. Therefore, and for many other reasons that have already been mentioned, I believe that a community center in Mueller is very much needed. Also, I think that there is a huge need for better street lighting in Mueller. I think it is dangerous to drive at night in Mueller as there is a low visibility. Because of that reason, I rarely go out at night. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ani Colt.
Thank you. I'm Ani Colt. I grew up with a community house. In the town I grew up in, it was there as long as I can remember. And it was called a community house. And then it's like I knew I had a community. Community became just part of who I am. And I think that our children would really benefit, as well as people of all ages. It's kind of the get away from your computer and touchy-feely thing of really being with people and learning. And I also see a lot of people in Miller who have gifts and talents that they'd like to teach, but they don't want to become full-time teachers. You know, they might want to teach an art class, or they might want to teach a yoga class, or something else. So it's a way for both the people who would go there and a place for people who want to use their gifts and skills and don't want to have a big business doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ani. Next up is Preston Terry.
Good evening. My name is Preston Terry. I'm a resident of Miller. I've been a resident for 7 years. And when we got this idea, I called around in the neighborhood and said, what would you do in a community house? And this is one of the responses I got. Miller is a wonderful community set up for children and families of all ages to flourish. Just today, my 5 and 2-year-olds and I did a bike ride around Miller, and I stopped to admire the beauty and express my gratitude. On Saturday, I drove by the Cherrywood Community Center, which I had not noticed before, and felt a pang of grief. In my previous city, I had worked as a director of the elementary after-school program at a neighborhood resource center, and it made me realize that Miller was missing a vital piece. A place where people, young and old, could come together to do workshops, potlucks, and other neighborhood events. Miller would benefit immensely from such a spot. I am now a homeschooling mom, and I have a homeschool collective I operate for free. And we would love a space that we could utilize when the weather turned poor for our meetups, workshops, and celebrations. As my children age and want to hang out somewhere that's not home, I would very much appreciate a safe place for them to spend time with their peers. My 5-year-old would love to have a place where he could have an air hockey table to play with his friends, and my 2-year-old said he would love to see everyone's puppy for a puppy party at the community center. Please consider adding such a space to our already great neighborhood. Thank you, Kylan and her children, Forrest and Atlas. Members of the commission, there's so many other opportunities that can be created with the community center. The city is looking for a space to create an intergenerational resource and activity center, an IRAC. The creation of a new community center could produce a specialized space needed for daycare of our elders, excuse me, and our children, so caregivers could have some time to do other chores, and to work to afford the care of their family members. What subject would you teach if there was space available? I would like a space to interview people for my podcast, and a space where I can produce a YouTube channel where this meeting will be broadcast tomorrow. It is a community as great as Miller. It is hard to believe that a community center wasn't part of the master development plan. We need one, and we need it soon.
Thank you, Thank you, Preston. Next is Vanessa.
Good evening. I've had the unique experience of being able to travel to Denmark for a few times over the past year, and it's one of the happiest places on earth. And one thing that I noticed was that in almost every single neighborhood, there was this unassuming, very practical community center in every neighborhood. And it was such a beautiful thing to see at night, the lights on, people around some tables playing games, having a party. I myself was invited to an anniversary party, a birthday party, confirmation party. And what I admire about Mueller is that it's very similar in our objective to be very green, very affordable, very walkable. But I was a little bit, I guess, mystified when I was thinking, well, what about my children? Where am I going to host their party? An affordable option. There really is no space to do that here for families because, you know, we're living in smaller homes, which I'm proud of, but unfortunately that kind of limits our opportunities to have a bigger gathering, whether it's a club or a birthday party or any sort of event that we want to host. We're kind of missing out on having those opportunities, that accessibility in our neighborhood, which I think is something it's very important, and I think we could definitely learn from other countries and cities who have such things. Thank you for listening to me, and I appreciate all of you.
Thank you. And next is Sally.
Hi neighbors, my name is Sally Acevedo, and I'm proudly live here in Austin for more than 7 years and in Mueller for the past 4 years. Growing up, I always remember that my first ballet class was in a community center where a local dancer of 5 years old like me at that moment. That experience was so impactful, and it's one of my the reason I fully support building a community center here in Mueller. A center that will provide spaces not only for fitness classes, educational programs, local business market, and just like me, childhood experience. It would create opportunities for kids to join classes and activities, and can be a true hub for the whole community. Somewhere where we connect, learn, and grow together. I heard the same from many of you, and I completely support the testimonies of our neighbors. Let's come together and make this community center a reality for Mueller and for all the people who live here, the younger, the older, the families, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all of your testimony. All right. That concludes all of the discussion items for the day. Commissioners, as a reminder, for next month's meeting, we will be taking up discussion and action on whatever proposals are coming from the transition work group before it's finalized. And if you have other suggestions for the agenda, send them to me and copy Kate, Jill, and remember to use your city email, as we always do. If, other than that, there are no other items on the agenda. I get the feeling some people are interested in doing other evening activities, so is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I hear no objections. Meeting adjourned. Have a nice evening.
Thanks, Mike.